Greetings to all who appreciate fun but don't like paying for it with a whole day of suffering. Today, we'll calmly and clearly examine why the morning is relatively easy after some drinks, while others turn into a real ordeal. We won't be preaching, but rather turning to chemistry and physiology. You'll learn which 5 drinks are most likely to ruin your next day, the specific substances in their composition that are responsible, and how you can minimize the risks if you can't give them up. This is a guide to making informed choices for those who want to maintain control. Anyone who's ever overindulged in alcohol knows that hangovers come in all shapes and sizes. The morning after a few shots of quality vodka may leave you with a mild headache and thirst, but after the same amount of alcohol in a sweet cocktail or dark whiskey, the experience is often described as nightmare. A crippling migraine, nausea, tremors, and a complete loss of energy. What's the secret? It turns out that the severity of a hangover depends not so much on the total amount of pure alcohol consumed, but on the complex cocktail of accompanying substances contained in each drink. Ethanol is the main, but not the only culprit. The morning of hell sensation is the work of so-called congeners, fusel oils, sugar, tannins, histamines, and even carbon dioxide. Understanding their role allows you not only to predict the consequences, but also to manage them. In this article, we'll rank the drinks with the most hangover-causing potential based on scientific data and provide practical recommendations on how to minimize the damage. This isn't a call to abstain completely, but rather a tool for making informed decisions. To understand why some drinks are more dangerous than others, it's necessary to thoroughly understand the mechanism of a hangover at the biochemical and physiological levels. This condition, known medically as visalgia, is not a single symptom but a complex, multi-system disorder caused by intoxication and metabolic imbalance. Ethanol is the key toxin, but its effects are only the first act of a complex play involving the liver, brain, kidneys, cardiovascular, and endocrine systems. Ethanol metabolism and the role of acetaldehyde. Once in the body, approximately 90% of alcohol is metabolized in the liver. This process occurs in 2 main stages. First, the enzyme alcohol dehydrogenase, ADH, oxidizes ethanol to acetaldehyde. This substance is the main cause of immediate symptoms of intoxication. Acetaldehyde is tens of times more toxic than ethanol itself. It damages liver cells, hepatocytes, disrupts the mitochondria responsible for energy production, and has a pronounced vasodilatory effect, leading to flushing, tachycardia, and sweating. In the second stage, the enzyme aldehyde dehydrogenase, ALDH, must quickly convert acetaldehyde to relatively harmless acetic acid, acetate, which is then broken down into carbon dioxide and water. Problems arise when the amount of alcohol consumed exceeds the capacity of this enzymatic system. Acetaldehyde accumulates in the blood, causing severe poisoning, manifested by nausea, vomiting, dizziness, and general weakness. The speed at which these enzymes work is genetically determined, which partly explains the different tolerances to alcohol among individuals. Dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. Alcohol suppresses the production of antidiuretic hormone, vasopressin, which regulates water reabsorption in the kidneys. As a result, the kidneys begin to produce urine in volumes significantly exceeding the amount of fluid ingested. This leads not only to water loss, but also to the critical leaching of vital electrolytes: potassium, sodium, magnesium, and calcium. Magnesium deficiency causes muscle weakness, tremors, shaking hands, nervousness, and tachycardia. Potassium deficiency leads to general weakness, arrhythmia, and muscle cramps. Dehydration causes dry mouth, intense thirst, headaches, partially due to thickening of the blood and reduced blood flow to the brain, and dizziness. Impaired glucose regulation and a drop in blood sugar, hypoglycemia. The liver, busy detoxifying alcohol, temporarily loses its ability to perform gluconeogenesis, the production of glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. Meanwhile, alcohol stimulates the release of insulin, which actively lowers blood sugar. As a result, hypoglycemia occurs a few hours after consumption. The brain, which relies on glucose as its primary fuel, begins to suffer from energy starvation. This manifests as severe weakness, loss of energy, impaired concentration, irritability, sweating, and tremors. Sleep and nervous system disruption. Despite its sedative effect, which helps you fall asleep, alcohol severely disrupts sleep architecture. It suppresses rapid eye movement, REM sleep, which is responsible for emotional processing, memory consolidation, and psychological recovery. As a result, sleep becomes fragmented and shallow, with frequent awakenings and the inability to enter the deep restorative stages. This leads to a feeling of grogginess in the morning, even after many hours in bed. Furthermore, alcohol disrupts the balance of neurotransmitters in the brain. While temporarily stimulating the production of the pleasure hormone dopamine and the inhibitory neurotransmitter GABA, it subsequently causes a sharp deficiency. In the morning, this results in anxiety, depression, irritability, and hypersensitivity to light and sound. The role of congeners, fusel oils, is a separate and critically important topic. Congeners are byproducts of fermentation, distillation, and aging that impart color, aroma, and flavor to drinks. These include higher alcohols, propanol, isobutanol, amyl alcohol, aldehydes, esters, methanol, tannins, and polyphenols. They create an additional, often more difficult-to-treat toxic load on the liver. For example, methanol breaks down into formaldehyde and formic acid, potent poisons that cause particularly excruciating headaches and visual impairment. Research, in particular a classic 2010 study published in the journal Alcoholism, Clinical and Experimental Research, clearly demonstrates a direct correlation. The higher the concentration of congeners in a drink, the more severe the hangover symptoms. Dark and aged drinks, bourbon, cognac, red wine, contain them several times more than pure distillates, vodka, gin. So a severe hangover isn't simply the result of overindulgence. It's the predictable end result of a complex cascade of biochemical reactions: acetaldehyde intoxication, dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, hypoglycemia, poor sleep, and an additional attack of congeners. Understanding these mechanisms, it becomes clear why the composition of your drink plays a crucial role in how you feel the next morning. To create an objective and useful ranking, relying solely on personal experience or common myths isn't enough. Our top ranking is based on an analysis of key factors that directly influence hangover severity from a scientific perspective. We assess drinks based on a combination of criteria, each of which contributes to the perfect storm of hangovers. The primary criterion was the content and variety of congeners, fusel oils, byproducts of fermentation and distillation that create the main toxic load in addition to ethanol. Drinks that, due to production technology, extended fermentation, aging in oak barrels, use of dark raw materials, contain high concentrations of methanol, aldehydes, higher alcohols, and tannins, received a higher dangerous score. The second key criterion was the presence and quantity of sugar. Sugar masks the taste of alcohol, encouraging excessive and rapid consumption, and also causes sharp spikes in blood glucose levels, exacerbating energy crunches and general malaise the next morning. Therefore, sweet liqueurs, cocktails, and dessert wines are automatically considered high risk. The third criterion is alcohol content and absorption rate. A high alcohol content, ABV, increases the overall toxic load, but the speed at which ethanol enters the bloodstream is equally important. Carbonated drinks, sparkling wine, soda cocktails, accelerate intoxication by irritating the stomach lining, leading to a more abrupt and jagged intoxication and a similar hangover. The fourth criterion we identified is the presence of additional triggers, substances that can cause adverse reactions on their own, but their effects are amplified when combined with alcohol. These include tannins from grape skins and oak barrels, which trigger migraines, histamines and sulfites, fermentation components or preservatives in wine that cause vascular reactions and headaches, and bitter hop resins in beer, which place additional strain on digestion. An important caveat: our ranking deliberately excludes obviously low-quality, counterfeit alcoholic beverages, as their consumption is associated with a direct risk to life. We consider legal, high-quality drinks that, by their nature and manufacturing process, have a high hangover potential. The final top spot was assigned to a drink based on a comprehensive assessment: a high concentration of congeners, the presence of sugar, and factors that accelerate absorption and increase side effects. The result is not just a list, but a guide to understanding your own body chemistry. Using a methodology that takes into account the combined effects of congeners, sugar, absorption rate, and additional triggers, we present a ranking of the drinks with the highest hangover potential. The ranking is arranged in ascending order from worst to worst, with fifth place being a warning sign and first place clearly leading the way in terms of potential to ruin your morning. Fifth place, strong dark rums and whiskeys, especially bourbon. These drinks open our list, demonstrating the classic effects of high congener content. Their complex, deep flavor and aroma for which they are prized are the result of long aging in charred oak barrels. It is during this contact that a huge amount of tannins, furfuryl, acetyls, and other compounds are extracted from the wood into the alcohol. Bourbon, according to some studies, contains some of the highest concentrations of congeners among spirits. The liver has to work extra hard to metabolize not only the ethanol but also this rich bouquet. The result is a particularly severe crushing headache, a feeling of cast iron in the head, and a prolonged loss of energy, which can haunt even moderate drinking. Compared to pure distillates like vodka, the difference in how you feel the next morning is striking. Fourth place, red wine, especially young, tannic, and inexpensive wine. Red wine is a textbook example of a drink where a hangover is caused by a number of independent factors that create a synergistic effect. First, tannins. Tannins from grape skins can cause vascular spasms and are a known migraine trigger, especially in predisposed individuals. Second, red wine naturally contains histamines, fermentation products, and often contains sulfites, sulfur dioxide, as a preservative. Both can trigger inflammatory and pseudo-allergic reactions, headaches, nasal congestion, and flushing. Third, many mass-produced and inexpensive red wines can have high residual sugar levels, which mask the harsh tannins and poor quality of the wine, adding a sugar kick to the chemical attack. This condition is often called wine head and is characterized by a specific throbbing headache that can occur after just 1 or 2 glasses of alcohol. Yes, third place, sparkling wine, champagne, prosecco, cava. Here, the main enemy is not so much the composition as the physics of the process. Carbon dioxide, CO2, which creates the festive bubbles, radically changes the scenario of intoxication and the subsequent hangover. When entering the stomach, the gas bubbles irritate the mucous membrane and accelerate the opening of the pyloric sphincter, which leads to the intestines. As a result, the bulk of the alcohol is not retained in the stomach, where its absorption is relatively slow, but quickly moves to the small intestine, where it is absorbed almost instantly. This leads to a sharp vertical intoxication. The body does not have time to adapt to the rapidly increasing concentration of ethanol and acetaldehyde in the blood, which creates a shock load on all systems. A hangover from sparkling wine often comes on faster and is more severe. A severe headache is combined with pronounced weakness and nausea, and the dehydration effect from alcohol is amplified by the diuretic effect of carbon dioxide. Second place, strong craft beers, Imperial Stout, Barley Wine, Triple IPA. This point is a trap for connoisseurs who think beer is harmless. Modern craft beers shatter this myth. They are a perfect storm for the body. Firstly, their strength is comparable to wine, often 8 to 12% ABV and higher, which means a large volume of pure alcohol. Secondly, dark beers like Imperial Stout contain a huge amount of congeners from roasted malt, and hop-heavy beers, Triple IPA, contain extremely high concentrations of bitter resins and essential oils from hops, which themselves put a strain on the gastrointestinal tract and liver. Thirdly, many of these styles, especially barley wine or imperial pastry stout, can be very sweet due to residual unfermented sugar. Fourth, it's still beer, a carbonated beverage consumed in large quantities. The combined effect, severe dehydration from alcohol and carbon dioxide, a toxic attack from congeners and hop resins, and sugar swings. The hangover is a combination of severe and very long-lasting. First place, overall champion, sweet cocktails and liqueurs, Long Island iced tea, various fruity cocktails like the mojito with syrup, strong dessert liqueurs like Bailey's. This is the clear winner, combining all the worst traits of the previous participants and adding a psychological factor. Firstly, sugar. It masks the taste of alcohol, making the drink light and harmless. This leads to rapid, uncontrolled consumption of huge doses of ethanol that you don't even realize you're drinking. Sharp spikes in blood glucose on their own cause weakness and nausea, and when combined with alcohol, the effect is greatly enhanced. Secondly, mixing. Many cocktails, the classic Long Island, contain 3 or more types of strong alcohol: vodka, gin, rum, tequila. For the liver, this means having to switch between different metabolic pathways, which increases processing time and the accumulation of toxins. Third, the method of consumption. Sweet cocktails are often sipped through a straw or in large gulps, which also accelerates the absorption of alcohol into the bloodstream. Furthermore, they often contain carbonated mixes, tonic cola soda, adding a sparkling wine-like effect. The result is the most unpredictable and devastating hangover. Severe intoxication from a large and varied dose of alcohol, exacerbated by a sugar crash and dehydration from the soda. The body requires maximum time and resources to return to normal. Knowing your main enemies gives you control over the situation. Complete abstinence isn't the only strategy. Mindful drinking, based on an understanding of the chemistry involved, can significantly reduce the risk of a severe hangover even with the drinks on our list. Here are the key rules that follow from all of the above. Rule number 1, avoid dangerous combinations. The simplest and most effective advice is to stay away from drinks that combine several risk factors. First and foremost, these are sweet, strong cocktails and liqueurs, the top pick. Replace them with something cleaner. Want a cocktail? Choose an unsweetened one such as a gin and tonic, with lime but no syrup, or a classic bourbon soda. Choose drinks with clear and minimal ingredients. Rule number 2, control sugar as the main trigger. Sugar isn't just calories, it's a mechanism that tricks your perception and exacerbates intoxication. Consciously avoid sweet wines, semi-sweet dessert, liqueurs, and liqueur-based cocktails. Choose dry, brut dry wines and sparkling wines. This will radically change your morning after the party. Rule number 3, don't mix different types of alcohol, and if you do, go increasingly strong. The classic don't lower the proof rule has a scientific basis. Stronger drinks partially prepare the stomach lining. But the ideal strategy is to stick to one type of drink per evening, only wine, only whiskey, only beer. This is especially important with dark beers and strong distillates with congeners so as not to overload the liver with processing different types of toxins. Rule number 4, water is your guardian angel. Alcohol causes dehydration. Proactively combat this. Drink a glass of pure, still water after every alcoholic drink. This will slow the onset of intoxication, reduce the concentration of toxins in the blood, and significantly alleviate morning symptoms. Before bed, despite the urge, try to drink another 1 or 2 glasses of water. Rule number 5, eat wisely. An empty stomach guarantees a quick and severe hangover. Fatty foods, cheese, cold meats, avocado, create a protective layer in the stomach and slow the absorption of alcohol. Protein foods will fuel metabolism. Avoid overindulging in sweet and salty snacks, which can worsen dehydration and blood sugar spikes. Rule number 6, know your dose and choose clean alternatives. If your goal is to minimize the effects, opt for drinks with low congener content. These include vodka, gin, white rum, neat or with unsweetened tonic soda, and dry white wines. Their hangover potential, given the same dose of ethanol, is significantly lower. Thus, we see that a severe hangover isn't a punishment from above or simply the price of having fun. It's a predictable biochemical result of a particular drink choice and behavior pattern. The drinks in our top picks, dark, strong distillates, red wine, sparkling wine, strong craft beer, and especially sweet cocktails, are champions at creating the perfect conditions for suffering the next morning thanks to their composition. However, armed with knowledge, you're no longer a hostage to the situation. You can choose. Choose less dangerous drinks, control the pace and quantity, counteract dehydration with water, and slow absorption with the right snacks. Mindful drinking isn't about prohibition, but about respecting your body and wisely managing the chemical processes you trigger within it. Remember, the best hangover is the one you avoid. Your morning is in your hands, or rather in your glass, and the decisions you make that evening.
That's all for today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. See you soon.